TK421, why aren't you?
Yeah, why aren't you responding? TK421. I'm glad somebody got the reference. All right, guys, what's going on? I am the one, the only, the WOOKIE, joined here by the same group of slacks that I'm always here with. Drazcor's here. I say hi, Drazcor.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Ewok's here. He's here somewhere. He said he was back.
Hello, Keyforge community.
And Dan.
Woo!
Why is he the excited one this week?
He's driving.
Oh.
Right? The car? It's like...
Yes. I'm in the car. I'm kid-free. Holiday weekend.
Oh, geez. I mean...
Doing donuts in the Target parking lot right now.
Because he's too classy for Walmart.
Yeah.
You are not incorrect.
Yeah. I know it. But getting into everything here real quick, ABR Week 1 is partially complete. What's going on in ABR, guys? Any good, interesting, fun items we can talk about?
Well, it's Adaptive Week.
Oh.
And so, yeah. So Adaptive is a format that I do every ABR season. I do like Adaptive. I do like it. It's one of those that I don't do as often. All right, so, I think as a team captain, people are like, Captain, what should I do for Adaptive? I'm like, bring a good deck. One that's maybe not obvious why it's so good, which is sometimes hard to find.
Does that exist anymore? I think I came into the chat when you guys are having a conversation. Like, does the obvious deck, this deck's hard to play, does that exist? I don't think it
obvious
does.
Deck?
An obviously like a deck that's like, oh, it's really good, but you got to figure it out. Wow.
I think what most people think are difficult decks are usually goofy combo decks. And the thing is if your opponent knows it and sees it, it's not a difficult deck to play.
Right.
And if they miss it because they've never handled that combo, then it's difficult to play and they make a mistake. But it's adaptive. Like, you often have to show it off a little bit before
you even get to
play
that point.
it. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, like, complex interaction stuff is important. More decision points does make a deck harder to play, but I think like the average quality of the person playing Keyforge with us these days, you're not going to trip them up by being like, hey, you're a beginner, here's a moderately interesting deck to play. Like, that's just not how it works anymore.
Yeah, I mean, most of us have seen 96%. This is a totally random number. I'm making it up. We've seen the combos, right?
No. We've done all the research, folks.
I mean...
Yes.
But I think this is the point here. AC doesn't run stats. Okay, you randomly shoot numbers out.
Yeah.
But the end result is that we are seeing when players are playing decks that are frankly have a higher chance of winning game one. You then look that they're not super fancy, okay, but they're looking for, do I have a way to isolate this deck and to be able to beat it? Does it have a weakness? Is really what I'm looking at. So if I can go ahead and maximize the win on game one and I have a higher chance at winning, that seems to be more important to me lately as I've been playing adaptive the last couple of seasons than just going ahead and playing a mediocre deck. In fact, Sheep, I think you made the argument that bringing a middle SAS tier deck, frankly, was one of the big things that could really hurt you with adaptive.
Yeah, you want to not have 50-50 games in adaptive, right? Because then somebody can just luck into winning.
Correct.
But yes, if you don't have a deck that wins game one, then you have 0% chance of winning adaptive on game two. Right? You've got to win game one to win it in two. So that tends to say the stronger deck is a good choice.
And what I've unfortunately seen lately is that people are bringing better decks that, frankly, I used to see more for Archon. That's what they're bringing for adaptive. They're just taking the win in game one, and then it helps if there's a little bit of complexity where, okay, this is lacking in one of the stats that we've just looked at, whether that's C, whether that's A. If they're missing a stat, then they go ahead and play to that out and just try and run to take game 2.
Yeah, so what I've looked for, and to some extent I was chatting with my team about trying to look for, is decks that are good, but also have little things in them that can get you incremental advantage if you know about them and you know how to use them, whereas potentially your opponent might not, right? So in theory, I like to look at the, low 70s to mid 70s decks where it's not just, it's just the killer card you play, right? It's not just the quad routine job deck or whatever, right? It's your, hey, these are good cards. And then, hey, if you know how to use the cards in the right way, you could do a little better than your opponent maybe can with that deck. But that, it does depend on your opponent, right? Can they really watch what you're doing? Can they figure it out? Can they play it just as well? And it's also hard, right? When you got new folks, and right, some of the folks on my team are new, and I'm saying, hey, look for a deck that's got this thing and fits your play style and that sort of thing. And it's a little hard. And so I try to look through their decks and, help them pick something. And I'm like, well, it seems like it might work out, but I'm just looking at the decks for the first time there, right? And so I'm sort of doing the thing your opponent would do if they're looking at the deck, right? So is that, I don't know, is it too obvious then if I'm saying maybe this one would be good? So I have a little difficulty helping folks pick decks sometimes.
Well, I like what you're putting. We do have an insurgence of new players coming to ABR, so that's phenomenal. When we see new players, that's exactly what we want. FFG hasn't supported Keyforge over the last year, but frankly, we still have new people coming out for leagues. That is absolutely amazing, and it's a testament to the game. So again, great job, ABR. Great job to all of the different groups that continue to put local events on or online events. I think what's interesting, Drascore, though, when I'm looking at this, that we do have that split where there's some new players, but we also have a very, very, very large contingent that has been around for an extremely long period of time. And when that happens, it's almost like a sealed environment where you've seen these cards come up. There isn't anything that's really surprising. And while you may have a minor incremental advantage by playing this deck, let's say 10, 15, 20, 100 times, that it does not go ahead and make up for some of the consistency where that deck isn't there when it's in the mid 70s, or other aspects of the deck. I think that a lot of people who have been around the game for a while can read the deck pretty quickly and be able to not be too far off what someone has played. That's just my experience. So,
yep, yeah, I think it's tricky. I think it's tough to pick. I was joking around with my team that I don't often win adaptive matches, but when I do, I win them 2-0.
I actually had to win mine on a chain bid this time.
I saw that. Our teams are playing, and so I was watching you play auto shot, and it was close. It was close.
Yeah,
it was close.
I'll give a shout out for my opponent this week. Next Gem Gaming's been awesome. AC regular. I know you've been on top of it. I was sick earlier this week, and I actually took a day and a half from work, which happens maybe once, twice a year. So it was bad, but he's been on top of it. We have our game tomorrow morning, and I'm looking forward to it. I do actually really like DT for adaptive. I think that it has an impact when you have a deck that can all of a sudden increase the chain amount part way through the game. So I like that aspect of DT in adaptive, but I don't know. There just isn't a ton that's wowing me for adaptive. I find that I wanted to go ahead and play either big, strong, kind of what I would used to consider Archon, but it has maybe a little component that needs, it's easier to exploit, or I wanted to play reversal. And I think the reversal just doesn't stand a chance as often to win an adaptive. It's really hard because you're giving up game one. And so
you're guaranteeing going to chains.
Correct.
And getting that bid right, and then not seeing the high roll or low roll decide the factor.
And I think if you want to go that route, the way that you have to honestly do it is to concede game one where you're not showing a single thing to your opponent on playing that. And then you have to win with their deck, knowing that you're going to better read their deck than how they know their deck. And that's just really, that's a little boisterous.
Silly. Yeah, that's so I've seen chain bidding. I've seen that attempted. It did not work well in the early ABRs. Now I was thinking maybe adaptive decks, but again, this is based off of assuming your player's skill isn't, your opponent's skill isn't as good as yours, which I don't like to play with that assumption, but I was thinking self-trap cards, which are decks that have crummy creatures and lots of Fangtooths. Decks that have good creatures and like Whirlpool, like some stuff like that, where like there's those few artifacts where we've talked about them, like you can't play them in your own deck sometimes, and then giving somebody a deck that has it and see if they play into the trap. Screaming Cave, I think, is a self-trap card that people get into. Using Screaming Cave is often really bad.
Screaming Cave is a must-play every deck.
Well, it's a
play. You just don't use it.
I like the pain.
But the other ones that are interesting, you see people either discard them or make mistakes in their use are like Greater Oxtet and Lesser Oxtet, where you're self-purging.
Yep.
Those are big decision factor cards that I've seen mistakes made on, and I don't know if that would actually be a good adaptive choice or not.
Well, going ahead and even looking at Quixel Stone deck that has, frankly, too many creatures for Quixel. But when you're in that realm, you end up with maybe one card. Maybe you don't even see Quixel in a game. It's in the bottom 5-10 cards. That has an impact too if you don't have the speed or efficiency for the deck. So, some thoughts, but ABR is happening this week with Adaptive, and good luck to everyone who still has their games left to go.
All right, so Vault Keeper signups are live. That is for the weekend of May 14th and 15th and the 21st. So if you are looking to go have some fun with them, you know where to go. He's in our channel quite often, so you can always find him here. But Vault Keeper's live. Swindle, is that one we're Xing through? We're not going through Swindle this week?
Well, I wanted to hear what happened with team, what is it? Dr.
Drazkar?
Dr. Drazray.
Dr. Drazray. I'm sorry. It sounds like a bad rap name.
How did you guys do?
What a great rap name. Well, X-Ray lost, so now Sheep and I both need to win.
Because of course X-Ray lost.
X-Ray.
He's the worst.
Sheep, what's your game, man?
He's the
After
worst.
Yours.
After mine's Sunday.
I mean,
okay.
Man.
I haven't successfully scheduled mine yet.
I guess this just proves Keyforge is like the only not pay to win game.
Right. We were commenting that X-Ray's decks, and he has very good decks, and
very good.
And
decks.
Often
some of the top decks in the world.
His matches have been often. He's got every one of his deck has a 10 sass advantage on his opponents, and he still can't find his wins this season.
Can't punch his way out of a paper bag.
Well, I wonder if it's because if there's just some way that his decks are set up that the single ban allows them to, really drive what he's going to end up playing. Because although he has 3 decks in his list, he's really only playing 2 of them.
Correct.
Which is exactly the exact same thing I've got. I've got 3 decks in my list, but I'm only playing 2 of them. So you basically ban one and I play the other. So I wonder if that's just getting him in a pot so they can, by kind of being able to pick that where you go, well, that 3rd deck is maybe the weakest one. It's the one he's not going to play. So I ban this one, and I know he's going to be on that one, which means I know I get to play this deck and have a better chance.
Correct, but that's what Triad is go ahead and find what's the weak link and go ahead and push yourself to your best out. I think that matchups
are a Triad.
Right?
Because once you've lost your one game, you're done. You don't get a chance for that deck to then beat your opponent's deck that you may be better off against. It is definitely interesting.
KFBL, yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely enjoying it. So we gotta fight to stay alive, and I'm playing Anxious Pirate actually. So I gotta take him out.
So you got a free win. No, probably not.
He's
clearly they've made it to we're in the final 6
top 4
right now, or top 4.
Yeah, we're in top 4.
So
they've done well.
Clearly they are playing well. So this should be some good stuff. And Swindle Team Season 3, which is more a modified or something. Signups are now.
I don't even know what more is.
Yep, signups are up there.
Signups are now.
Signups are now.
We'll have to talk about that and figure out what we're doing for that sheep. So.
Absolutely. All right.
It's going to be Dr. Drazwalk. We're going to have to kick the ring.
Are you guys?
Are you sure that's what you want to do? You want to go ahead and at least know actually that you made it to the final.
Making player cuts on the show.
No, you made it to the final 4. We won't even make it to first cut. So there you go.
Well, it's the opposite of APR, where you draft people secretly.
$20 Patreon. You can be our third.
Oh God! Oh God! That's
This is. Oh.
I love it. Like,
no.
I mean,
he's not even here, but he'll hear it.
Well, we'll play with you, buddy. Don't worry.
Oh, all right. So moving into Disruption Part 2. Last week, we had a lot of discussion on Disruption. Discussion on Disruption. Ooh, I like that. What is that called?
Alliteration?
Alliteration. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. I was going to say onomatopoeia, but I knew that was wrong. But
that's the other one.
Yeah, that's the other one. But more discussion. So it went so long that we decided to just chop it into 2 parts. Because huge, I mean, Disruption's kind of big. It's a thing that exists. Ewok you put on mobile, it's not a stat that you immediately see. You need to scroll.
Actually, I put this in. So
well, go ahead, explain that.
Yeah,
explain yourself.
Let's first start for anyone who didn't catch the episode last week. Disruption definition coming from DOK. Disruption is increased by effects that reduce the number of cards your opponent can play. 1 point is approximately equal to preventing your opponent from drawing 2 cards. And then, Draz, you did a great job at kind of outlining some of the different categories. So last week we talked about discarding, returning to hand, draw limitation, house lock, must choose, cannot choose, penalty. Those are all aspects that we had looked at for Disruption. And then this week, we're going to go ahead and look at card lock, ability disruption, chains, play disruption, purge, play from opponent, top of the deck, attack the archives, and then we have a miscellaneous category, which only has 1 card, and we'll get into that later. All right, go for it. On mobile.
Yeah, so I was reflecting on this sort of at the end of the last episode as we were wrapping up, and just thinking about this stat and thinking about how I scroll through my collection or scroll through, decks that I'm like, what comes up this search? Anything good for sale, right? And about how, as I'm just scrolling through, quick glancing at the numbers, eyeing over the deck list, looking at the cards and stuff, you don't, just the way that DOK is formatted on your phone, right? That small form factor, you do not immediately see the numbers for stats over to the right, and disruptions in that, right? So the quote unquote main stats, right? The ones that, you've probably heard us say before, hey, sometimes, that query of 10, 10, 20, 10, right? Where it's Ember control, creature control, Ember generation, speed, like you want those all to be in certain ranges, but then we don't necessarily say like, oh yeah, you should have this amount, or you should look, if you want a disruption deck, look for something this amount. You have to scroll to the right. I have to swipe to the right in order to be able to see the icon that says, the icon and the number that says, hey, how much disruption is in this deck? And I think partly just because of the way it's organized, I think about this stat less as I'm scrolling around, as I'm looking through decks. It's only when I'm getting into that deck and I'm like, oh, double Succubus, double Ember, Restiguntus. Hey, you know what? Let me just scroll back up and look at that disruption stat and see how big it is.
I do think that disruption is a stat that we think of second as opposed to, because like disruption, like a lot of the disruption cards fall into other categories too. A lot of the good ones, anyways, the ones that are worth playing. Like, we got Card Lock, which is Eaton's Jar, which basically you're calling a card and saying, like, you can't play that card anymore, which can be a big disruption, or it can be a giant dead card, too. But, like, Mark of Dis, or Control the Weak, or Life Ward, like, these are just always good cards, period, because they disrupt your opponent's game plan, like, end of story. Does that make sense, or do I need to go further into that?
I mean, Eaton's Jar is always good.
Eaton's Jar is always good because you're going to get to call one card in their deck that's just now a dead card.
I guess in Sealed, it's a lot less good, right?
Yeah,
you're sort of, you know your deck, and it's like, well, they're playing AOA with Mars, so I'll do,
right. I mean, if they have a card in their deck that's very, very important to their strategy, and you can just say, like, you no longer play this card, like a quad routine job deck. Okay, well, you can no longer play routine job. Ouch. That's going to hurt.
So here's the question. Yeah, here's the question. For Sealed, do you go ahead and pick the big Amber Control card? Do you go ahead and pick the big Creature Control card that you're worried about? You can see the 3 houses that are there. Or do you pick the common card that you see is most likely to show up in that grouping?
Well, that's 100% dependent on the deck you're playing.
Yes.
If you have a ton of creatures, you're going to pick the C card. If you're a stupid Amber Burst deck, then you got to think about the TMTPIGs. If it's just average Sealed deck versus average Sealed deck, you pick the Red Penny, right? Like, that's just how that goes.
But I think we take that for granted, and that's why I wanted to throw it out there, is kind of think through what's going to hurt you most, and that's what you're seeing people play.
I think what WOOKIE was maybe trying to say was that a lot of these D cards and the disruption stat is weird because disruption is also everything. Like when you talk about an Eaton's Jar, or when you even talk about the reveal from hand and discard cards, like they're everything. They can be Amber Control, they can be Creature Control, they can be anti-F. They can do all of those jobs if they fire at the right time and hit the right cards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but they're also not guaranteed. They're not guaranteed to be those things. Like a big strategy with Mark of Dis decks is you put yourself on check and then you Mark of Dis them out of their Amber Control houses and you go, haha, I get my key, right? That's, it's a disruption card, but it's handling Amber Control, or it handles a lot of different
and it might also be Creature Control. I mean, it plays so many roles.
Yeah, and I know Sheep, you weren't here last week, but that's what was said, is that D or our disruption falls in as basically it can fill in for your Amber Control, it can fill in for your Creature Control, it can fill in for each of these other areas.
Yes, but the thing with D, and the reason I think it can be a secondary stat, is you don't need D to win a game. Technically, you don't need any stat, but to consistently have a chance, you don't need D. There are absolutely ridiculous decks out there that don't have Dis, so they don't have D, and they do really good, right?
Come on, we got Ability Disruption coming up next. We have 2 Logos cards.
Yeah, I mean, you also see Unfathomable that shows up, but for the most part, it's Dis. I mean, we can agree on that.
Yeah, it's always Dis, most of the time.
This is short for disruption.
It is.
Honestly, most of the decks that I have very, very little D, and that's just what you're looking at. So no, it is not a stat that's needed. I think when you're talking, you can survive without some of those major stats. I want to say A for Amber Control is where I get frustrated with AOA, because when A is just not there. But what I'm saying is, like, that's one of those stats where if you just end up with 0, great. It's going to be who can get to 18 first. Whereas if I have a 0 sitting here for my D, it's not going to impact me in the same way.
Right. It's, again, like, I wish, like, so many of these, like, we're going to get into, like, Ability Disruption, like Shadow of Dis. Like, that's the one that blanks all abilities, right? All creature abilities.
I'll read it. So Shadow of Dis is a dis action play. Until the start of your next turn, each enemy creature's text box is considered blank except for traits, and it does have an Amber Pit.
But we might have gone over it last week when we went over lockouts. Did we already do that? But like Chronophage, like I got really excited for Chronophage when it came out, right? Because I actually thought like this is where you were gonna see DT become extraordinarily viable. Was actually Chronophage.
Chronophage, 3 power, Logos creature, beast robot. Your opponent's creatures and artifacts gain Omega.
Right.
After they play that card, end the current step.
Especially with MM being so creature driven, like if you could first turn that Chronophage, what does that do to the game? Turns out, not much. Like I tried double Chronophage decks to get it, to get it first turn, triple, and Chronophages are rare. So you're not finding like pretty much any triples, but you could find some doubles out there and try to pop it first turn. But it normally just lasts like the turn unless you have some follow up to it. So it just didn't do much. Skippy Time Hog. There we go. There's an ability disruptor. Go ahead, Ewok.
Well, while I go and look for Skippy, I guess the big piece for Chronophage is that Chronophage, in my opinion, needs to have some taunt or something to be able to protect it.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is that too often there's just so much C that's here, whether that's through fighting, whether that's through going ahead and actually removing with a card. And that's what becomes problematic of why Chronophage just dies at the breeze of someone going ahead and blowing.
If only we could have Chronophage resting Guntus.
There you go.
The degeneracy that could happen.
So
Legacy Maverick. Why not?
Legacy Maverick?
Yeah, sure.
So you throw out Skippy. Skippy Time Hog is a Logos 1 power creature mutant. Play. Your opponent cannot use any cards during their next turn. Cards still can be played and discarded, but cannot use.
But you see that a lot. I believe Gasolina has a Skippy that he uses quite well. Am I mistaken on that? It is a Skippy, or is it a Neutron Shark that I'm thinking of? Two different cards, but either way.
Really like Skippy. This definitely feels like ascending order in terms of ability disruption of how impactful these cards are.
Yeah,
Skippy Time Hog, I am always happy to have in a deck. It comes out, it just stops everything from being used on your opponent's board, right? And suddenly they had just set up something big, and you're like, oh nope, you got to wait till next turn, right? And that can because they've got microphone just crackled. That can set them off a bit because they were planning to do something. Now it's like, oh shoot, I can't use my board, so I guess I do something else with my hand, and then even that next turn, maybe it's harder to use that board, or you buy yourself a turn to get your board wipe, or it's really
I feel like
good,
Skippy increased in value with MM. He was good before, but I think after MM he became even better.
Maybe because in MM there's so many big board decks, right? So I mean, if you're bringing your Coda deck that has a Skippy, I think it's just as strong. But I think the card in of itself has gotten better as big boards are.
Just imagine I reap with my my Kirby, and you just get nothing. Like you just get an Ember. Here you go. All your value gone.
Yeah, when you were talking about Gasoline uses Skippy because Skippy was actually there as a mutant in Coda, which is interesting. The other piece that I found interesting is looking up Gasoline. Gasoline has a disruption value of 11, which is fairly high. 2 for Control of the Weak at almost 4. It's 3.9, and then Western Guntus at 3. But you're really only looking at 3 cards producing almost all of that 11 disruption. But I know that those cards by themselves can be brutal. I think the Nepseed is also, because it doesn't score anything, but Nepseed, the ability to pull back a key card at the right time, could be used as additional disruption.
Well, when that was an LA Loop deck, it was stupid. Well, I mean, being able to LA loop, and then I'm almost positive has a phase shift in it. So then you're just like, oh, yep, and there's a restaurant gun, so you won't be playing cards from. I mean, it was just silly, absolutely silly. But LA loop return.
I think the other reason Skippy is so much better than Chronophage is, even though he's 1 power, right, is his effect has already been triggered, right? Yeah, you kill him instantly, he's 1 power, or not bother because it doesn't matter, right? Whereas Chronophage, if you can just kill him right away, right, you play your implosion.
Right. Well, yeah, he's Skippy Timehawk has what play is it play read play fight read?
No, just play.
Just play. It's just a play effect.
Yep.
Yeah, so you almost want him to die.
Yeah, so you can cycle him back through.
Right. So you're almost like, please kill him. Yeah. So I mean, we've always talked like play effects in this game are by and far the best effects in the game. I mean, I don't think that's any secret at this point. 5 sets in, I mean, play effects are the best. Period of the story.
Yeah. Although continuous effects are pretty darn good, and that's what Chronophage is, right?
Continuous effects are good if they can live.
Yeah. True.
I mean, if Chronophage was a 10-power creature,
sure,
Chronophage decks might be seeing a lot of play, sure. But he's not. He's a 3-power. He's in that sweet spot where most direct damage kills him. And if you're playing against Coda, he's basically dead. Because everything in Coda does 3 damage or more.
Yeah.
3 to 4 damage for some reason.
I actually think that putting an armor on him at 3/1 or even a 4/0 would have kept him around. There just isn't the taunt to be able to protect Chronophage.
I don't know that you want it. Like, there is a risk of making it too strong, right?
It's a rare.
Careful. Yes.
Again, like if we put it at uncommon or common, fine, we can have that conversation. But even here, Chronophage being at a rare means that on the off chance that you see 3 rares in a deck, which is extremely rare, we just saw earlier today, or someone was pointing out that we found the first triple time traveler.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, super awesome. Great. We can see that. But when you have in a common slot,
like they don't exist.
You can end up with 5. That's a high amount, but 3 is not too far off if it's common. But Chronophage being in the rare, it doesn't hold the stamina that it needs to be successful.
I mean, and not only that, we view rarity in this game kind of differently than any other game. Right, because rare, you're not. I mean, obviously, you're not going to see it. Where if you like go play a Magic deck or a Yu-Gi-Oh deck, most of your cards are rare, right? But like that means how often are you? Basically, it's the frequency of what you're going to see it. Well, there's a lot of times where they made rare cards really crummy. Like there's a lot of just junk rares, a lot of them, just junk, like absolute junk. And then, but like you should almost feel like you're like, oh, I pulled a rare card. I mean, that it should be somewhat powerful, right? I mean, I get the kind of the game design balance of like, okay, because of the algorithm and all that jazz, like, we don't want this card. Like, we got to make bad cards, but we don't want them to show up too often. So it's like almost backwards designing, but at that point, it's like I need some good stuff too. Like I really don't see, like, if you were to put Chronophage at like 5 power, I think he's much better. I mean, like,
or put Titan Guardian in set or something,
right? Yep. And that's a lot of the times we see a lot of these cards that like, oh, these cards have potential, but they're missing the other piece. Which, I mean, maybe some people feel is good. I don't know. Like I feel like if you had a nice little taunter for your Chronophage, like, and you get him down, and he's a problem, that's pretty fun, right? That's a pretty fun little puzzle for you to solve. I guess in game maybe not, but I feel like we're always we're missing a lot of puzzles, and it's like we're always like, oh, we have this, oh, but we're missing this piece. And we can't just go get, this isn't a game where you could just go get it.
Right.
You're always like you're missing that other half. That would just make it pop off.
Right. I mean, this conversation is making me think maybe I should go look for a fun Chronophage deck, right?
I looked for all of them.
There's too many like uber powerful ones, but
there's not.
just one that would be fun to play and try to make.
I mean, shoot, I had found a double chronophage. I think it was double Val Jericho deck. Dude, this thing again couldn't punch its way out of a paper bag. It was an X-ray. It just could do nothing. Like it was like a one-trick pony, and as soon as they killed as soon as they shot the pony, it was over. Sorry, X-ray, but literally, it was a one-trick pony. Like, and as soon as the pony was dead, like the deck just was a wet fish. Fish out of water. It's not doing anything. But let's keep moving into chains. Not a ton of cards that deal chains. We got one in DT. One? Well, we got another one in DT. Nobody?
The
Tide card kind of gives chains.
But that's your opponent's choice, right? They did that to themselves, or you do it to yourself, right?
Right.
As opposed to, like, your Binding Irons, I inflict 3 chains on you.
Yeah, Binding Irons, your opponent gains 3 chains as an action.
I still don't know why they never, Binding Irons might be a little too strong. But if they would have, ran with that whole idea of, this house gives chains to your opponent. I think that'd be a fun idea. Just me?
Well, in typical Wookiee fashion, I think it'd be fun to be the guy giving the chains.
Sure.
But you want to be the guy getting those chains, right?
Well, again, this is play testing. This is balancing. Like another card like Binding Irons, where it just hands out 3 chains. Maybe not. Maybe not that crazy. But maybe it's like fight. Your opponent gains 1 chain. Where you might be losing something, or before fight or something like that, right? Where you got to balance that that chain giving ability. Still going to be super strong because you're giving your opponent chains, but you got to have some sort of downside to it too. I don't know if they never really thought about it, never really looked at it. Binding Irons is a super fun card that can be super devastating when you eat 6 chains turn 1. It can slow you down enough to completely grind your deck to a halt.
So this is really interesting. Just a quick check on DOK, and there are over 1,000 decks with 2 copies of Binding Irons, and I have at least 1. And then go to 3, there's 0. So there has to be a cap on it. Yeah. Correct. So it's algorithm limited. But if you're looking in Wookiee, you're saying chains early. Yes, they have a bigger impact on the game than later.
Sure.
So that's something. But honestly, even being struck with 6 chains on turn 1, if you're limiting it, because it's a common,
right?
What if we had gone ahead and done 6, and you're still limiting it to 2? All of a sudden, now you get hit with 12?
12 chains. That's game. That's GG. Scoop it up. Start game 2. 12 chains minus 2 cards right away. Turn 1.
But you already have your card. So
how is that fun?
This isn't about fun. It's about winning.
Yeah, yes, it is. The same thing with your Chronophage. If you made Chronophage better, now he's a 1-card proxy game win. It's not good game design nor fun to lose to turn 1 Restiguntus is randomly called the house you have a handful of.
Yeah.
Oh no, we talked about this last week.
We talked about that last week.
That's not a chance.
But I wasn't here. But having set up where a Chronophage can just win on turn 1 is dumb, right? That isn't good. Same thing, more chains. I like Binding Iron as a card. A deck with 2 of them and some goofy recursion things on it is actually pretty powerful, but it would be neither fun nor good for the game for you to be able to just be all right, you're going to play this game with 17 chains, so you're playing with 3 cards to my 6. Good game.
That's what I say. There's got to be some balance to it. I think Binding Irons as a card is too strong of a card.
You think that 3 chains is too strong of a card?
For 1 card to give your opponent 3 chains?
What's any different than playing any DT?
Well,
you have the choice?
You do have the choice.
I don't think it's too strong at all.
I don't think so.
Because what did DOK say 1 chain is worth? 2 cards?
Yes, it's the preventing the drawing of 2 cards. That's a D of 2. right? Because it's going
Right.
to prevent you from drawing
6 cards.
3.5. No, not 6 cards.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, 2, 4, 6. Because you're drawing one.
So
oh,
with
it's
2
one
of
less
them.
card. No, you're right. You're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Bad
So
math.
I know very clearly from play experience at higher end play level, because I play a deck called Akari that's owned by Big Z, and that has a Binding Irons in it. And that card almost always gets fed to the EE on the fringes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And like, you almost, and sometimes you even purge that card out of your own deck, even if they have disc, just because you don't want to see it again. Because it's okay, but it's not that good. Now, in mid-tier play and in sealed, man, stacking 6 chains on somebody is a big deal. But some of these top-end decks and the amount of F that gets played, it often doesn't have that big of an impact. I think it is a well-balanced card. I do think, and I do agree with you, they did miss using chains as more of a cost for things. Like, instead of some of these reap stun a creature, like reap gain a chain effect, an artifact that said if you reap, you gain a chain, you want to talk about thinking about reaping. Like, you never think about it. If it's reap stun a creature, like the only time you don't do that is if it's your only amber control creature and you might need them later. But if it was reap, gain a chain, you'd heavily contemplate every reap.
Think about that as a symmetrical effect that would be out there. Reap, take a chain. With some of the MM decks where you have all, or Worlds Collide, where you have all these creature heavy boards, because you want to be able to see as play effect how to go ahead and swing it back. That's a real easy way to be able to bring it back.
The interesting one, or could you imagine things like Custom Office or Tentakiss, where it's like, hey, you know, if you want to use your artifact, you know, give me a chain instead of Ember or whatever, playing the thing, or some interesting things maybe they could do. I just think you need to be careful.
Well, the problem that with an artifact is there isn't enough destruction, in my opinion. Or if it's a creature, you can honestly, creature can be removed so easily. You can either attack, fight the creature, you can go ahead and remove the creature, and it's still your choice. You can choose. I'm just not going to reap in order to go ahead and take that effect, which is the chain.
Okay, but this isn't our dream card design segment, right? We're still talking about D. So let's
play disruption.
I think well, at least several of us agree chains is still an underutilized mechanic overall.
Yeah. I think it'd be more fun.
I have a double Binding Irons, double Nepenthe Seed deck.
You
might have to mess around with that.
Bust that bad boy out. But let's move into play disruption. I think this is kind of going to be a bigger part of our... I mean, Purge, I guess, is kind of the other one, too. I mean, we got stuff in play disruption like Scramble Storm Stealth Mode, which do very, very similar things. Ewok, you want to tell us what those do?
Sure. Well, I'm going to start with our Life Ward because I have that one up already. So Life Ward, Dis, and this is the artifact. So artifact power with it, Printed Amber, Omni, sweet ability there. Sacrifice Life Ward. Your opponent cannot play creatures on their next turn.
Pretty good.
Super powerful card.
Yeah. I mean, even in Coda, it was good, and it was a lot more limited. A lot more
quality in creatures.
Right. And
I was just going to ask that. Is it more powerful now, again, that there are more decks that want to play creatures?
Well, yeah, because even the incremental soft C cards are so much better. Like you were talking about a little bit earlier. But soft C, the stun when reap style creatures and effects are so much stronger now with MM and DT than they ever were before. And Worlds Collide too, yes, all this stuff is much better. Life Ward is huge because there's so much Amber control on creatures now.
Do you want to do Ember Imp? I'm guessing that's the next card you have up then, Ewok.
Yeah, I got Ember Imp. So Ember Imp is Dis, 2 power, creature Imp. Your opponent cannot play more than 2 cards each turn.
So good. I absolutely love Ember Imp. I'm sorry. Is it wrong of me that I like all this turn 1, like you just lose? Is that bad?
But it's not a you lose. You have to respond to it. These are this is a must respond creature.
Well, there are plenty
think about it.
There are plenty of times where like somebody's turn 1 Ember Imp me, and I'm just like, yeah, I think I just lose. Like I don't see a way I get out of this.
I'm playing a big creature deck, so all I can do is play a creature.
Just like play 2 at a time,
and you kill it, and like take it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then one Shadow Self or one Taunter, and that Ember Imp does. It can shut down and win a game. It definitely happens.
Like, Ember Imp is definitely like a turn 1 Ember Imp is just, I mean, that can be catastrophic. Very catastrophic.
And it can also just eat half of a Twin Bolt emission and
die. Yeah, it can just as easily just be a fart in the wind, But yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those cards that when you're playing Archon, you see your opponent's deck lists, and you notice they've got one of them, maybe even multiple of them. Like sometimes you got to be a little more thoughtful with your mulligan, right? You got to look at, can I deal with it if that comes out turn 1?
That happened to me. That happened to me in Madison when me and Dan went out to Madison for a. I don't remember if it was what was it? Was it a Grand Championship game?
We're at a Prime.
We're at a Prime, yeah. Grand. I keep saying Grand. We're at a Prime where I did get turned 1 Ember Imp, but I was playing a not Screaming Cave. Totally drawing a blank on it. Untamed card, destroy the weakest creature. Why am I?
Fangtooth?
Oh, a Fangtooth.
Fangtooth Cavern. It's like one of my favorite cards. I just totally drew a blank on it. But I got to play my 2 cards for the turn. One of them was Fangtooth. So good. Just get out of that little Ember Imp.
I think, Draz, though, I think what you hit on here is, again, the common component. Because Ember Imp comes as a common, you can easily end up with 3 of them in a deck. And that's where it becomes really problematic because I have enough time to set up behind taunts. I have, if you don't have a straight board wipe, that can really be a big issue. Putting 1 out is bad. Putting multiples out is really, really not good. Especially then with Coda here bringing our good friend Arise. You can Arise multiple Ember Imps, so that
could you imagine playing for each Ember Imp, your opponent could play 1 less card if they were like Plague Rats?
I do think I think it's worded correctly with how it is. Your opponent cannot play more than 2 cards. I thought that was a really nice design. But with the idea for Arise really makes Dis a lot stronger, in my opinion, for Coda. Shall we go into a Logos card?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's. Absolutely. That's it.
All right, there you go. Great job, guys. All right, Scrambler Storm is an action Logos with a printed amber. Your opponent cannot play action cards on their next turn.
I mean, you might as well read Stealth Mode right away, too.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the same card, pretty much.
It is. House. So, Stealth Mode is Star Alliance, action with a printed amber. Your opponent cannot play action cards during their next turn.
Yep. Actions are awesome.
Good.
So these are great, right? Scrambler Storm was already good at uncommon. Stealth Mode at common.
Was it uncommon? I thought it was a rare.
No,
it probably was uncommon.
Yeah, they changed it from uncommon to common for Star Alliance.
Yep. Just for Star Alliance, huh?
Yep, because Star Alliance.
That's how much.
Worlds Collide Star Alliance.
That's how much. What's his name? Like Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
Totally drawing a blank. I'm drawing blanks on everything right now. My brain's just fried. But do you want to go? Play Disruption. Obviously, it's huge. Life Ward is. Because Life Ward isn't just, again, like Dan said, Life Ward isn't just play disruption. That's basically creature control. Ember Imp is basically everything control, right? Like either deal with me or, if you don't, good luck, And then Scrambler Storm again, controlling the amount of cards. Again, good luck. And it's got printed amber. But Cope, you want to read Cope for me?
Yeah. Cope we have is a 2-power unfathomable creature, Aquan. Your opponent cannot play more than 1 card of each card type. Action, artifact, creature, upgrade each turn.
I was really hoping they were gonna focus the Unfathomable more along that line. Like that idea, but they didn't.
I would actually go ahead.
I was going to say at that point, they might as well be Dis, right? I mean, they think they were going for a different thing, which I appreciate, and I like the concept of where they were going, and sometimes you get good Unfathomable, but it's kind of
here's the problem with what you have right now. Like for what's good and what's bad, like what's left. They're not much, you know what I mean? Like, there are some things that haven't really been explored, you know, like the chains, you know, and all that jazz, and doing stuff with that. I think that's like the last thing that, like, I mean, they could do like hand discarding, but again, now you're getting more into like the Shadows. You know, Shadows has done it. Dis has done it. You know, like, I mean, where do you go next? I guess maybe you introduce a new mechanic.
Yeah, we have trading mechanic. I don't think that we are tapped out in Keyforge with the mechanic.
I'm not saying we're tapped out, but I just think like maybe they should have stuck in their lanes a little bit. Like if Dis was going to be like the control house, like give them the control-y aspects of it. Like allow them to say what, when, where, and why. You know, but then give like hand disruption to another house, and then give, you know, like play disruption to another house. That was all I was trying to say.
Yeah, I get where you're going. I think they made a conscious decision to each set change a little bit of the balance between like, oh, now this house
except for Logos.
Well, Logos just says everything.
Logos gets everything.
Yeah. I mean, they've got
That's why this next set's so terrifying. It's like, who's going to be the house that I look for?
Yeah, I mean, who knows, right? I mean, there's been other sets or other houses that you look for in sets, but sure, like
Logos has consistently been one of the tops,
right? It's that
they do everything. They have Ember Control. They create good F. They create positive F, not just like. Well, I guess they create fuddy duddy F too, but like normally they can control really good F. They have creature control. They have. I mean, what don't they have?
Yeah, they got everything.
I mean, they have a board. I think they even have a board. Well, yeah, they even have a board wipe. What am I saying? They have multiple of them. So
I'll refocus us on co-op.
Yeah, let's refocus on co-op.
I think it's interesting. It fell as an uncommon. This is one of the cards that I had a little bit higher hope for, but after playing a bit of DT, the end result is, unlike Ember Imp, where I'm restricted with playing 2 cards, there are times where I have no problem playing multiple cards because I can have an action, an artifact, creature. I can have 3 or 4. I've actually had Kelp against me, and it wasn't even an issue because I was playing 3 of the 4 items and then just moving my hand. So I have had this card not as impactful as I would have liked to have seen. I do like how it was written and the game design behind it, but it's just in play, it hasn't come to fruition that I was hoping.
Yeah. Should we move into Purge? Because I think, again, this is another huge... Yeah, I'm sorry, Telega. I did miss Telega. You're right. Sorry. Yeah. Go ahead.
So Telega is untamed 3-power creature, human witch. Each time your opponent plays a creature, gain 1 amber.
Yeah, so it's a little softer, but like because it's not can't, but there's a big penalty, right? And to kill her, sometimes you gotta play a creature or 2, right? So it's like you gotta pay to kill her a little bit. So
gotta pay to play.
Yeah.
Quick question: why is this card right here, but we don't have Custom Office and Tentacus?
Not gonna lie, Ewok made the list.
Well, okay. Let's play Ewok. I agree. So I guess Custom Office would count in theory.
It does,
but Tentacus isn't play disruption. You could put that in ability disruption.
Okay.
I don't know.
For what? Customs Office?
Custom Office is on play.
Well, Custom Office is what? To use an artifact, you got to pay 1?
To play an artifact.
No, that's Tentacus.
That's Tentacus,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Customs is to play it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would. So we actually search on, let's see. I'm curious. Is there any disruption with custom office. Let's see, cards custom
Does it give any?
office.
While you look that up, let's go through Purge, because I think this is the big one, right? Because Purge is huge, like huge.
By the way, the answer is no.
It does not give any disruption
and expected ember and artifact control,
but no given disruption.
That's right.
Maybe we need to fix this site. All right, Purge. Dan's favorite thing. Dan loves purging cards.
Mm-hmm.
The hell with that. I like shredding cards.
Yeah.
So the first
Should we go through them in order?
Yeah.
Bornet.
So Bornet and Bornet's Touch. So Bornet is a 3-power creature demon. Reap, reveal the top 5 cards of a player's deck. Purge a card revealed this way. Shuffle the other revealed cards into that deck. And then Bornet's Touch is action with an amber. Play, reveal the top 5 cards of a player's deck. Purge a card revealed this way. Shuffle the other revealed cards into that deck.
Bornet's Touch significantly better than Bornet, but I think you get. Are they linked to each other?
No,
they're not. No,
obviously, but I mean, yeah, super impactful. Look at 5, pick 1, Purge. No,
I don't know if it's super impactful. It is.
Really? You're playing it wrong.
Sometime near meaningless.
Well, okay, I'll give you that. Sometime near meaningless. I will give you that, because sometimes you look at the top 5 and you're like, it doesn't really matter. I could roll a dice.
Sometimes you look at the top 5, you're like, no, I want you to keep all this garbage.
Yeah, can I just put these back? I mean, I've had plenty of Bornets where I'm like, oh, yep, that's gone. Yeah, and whatever that was that you were just about to draw, please shuffle that.
I do like this though, right? Like you're giving
I
yourself,
like it, but it's not always huge.
Nah, I mean, right? Like it's a little bit of luck of the draw, right? Like, can I get their key abduction, or can I hit their, whatever piece,
their super powerful artifact before it hits the board.
Right. Like that's pretty good. And the fact that you look at 5, I mean, that's a decent spread, but or defend against something like, hey, I don't want them to be able to play a board.
I mean, what do you look at? That's an eighth of their deck, isn't it? 36.
7.
Right?
Ish.
I mean, yeah, that's really rough, but yeah.
Okay. So here's a thing on my thought on power level. Right here is, I would rather have a Bornet's Touch than a single binding irons in a deck.
That is a single binding irons, like just one.
Well, if it was one binding irons or one Bornet's Touch, it would be a Bornet's Touch.
I'd take the Bornet's Touch. Sure. Yeah, I will too.
Sure. You have a printed amber versus no printed amber, and you have the ability to to purge or remove a card.
To pick a card, yeah.
Yeah.
But I was just coming back around to that on the relative power level of binding irons.
Yeah.
Which I don't think is that high.
Dan's just trying to stick it to me, is what he's trying. He's like, hey,
that
did you feel that?
What I am doing.
Did you feel that knife? I just need to twist it.
Let me twist.
Let me go ahead and twist that a couple times just to make sure you know it's there.
What I think is interesting about both of these is stats listed from DOK have both of the cards under a 50% win rate. So Bornet is actually higher than Bornet's Touch, which I would have gone the opposite way, but 49.5%.
Bornet is higher than Bornet's Touch?
Yeah, 49.5 versus 48.9.
I mean, Bornet is still a 5-power creature. So
Bornet's a 3-power creature.
What am I thinking of? Yeah, here we go. I'm just gonna go lay down. Somebody.
He's maybe reusing Bornet leads to more wins, because I'm telling you, a single use of a Bornet is not consistent enough to be meaningful.
Right.
And you're not likely to play the card more than once in a game.
Well, next thing Dan's going to tell me Infernus is useless.
Which is our next card. So Infernus, I'm sure no one's heard of this card before.
What?
But
I've never heard of this. Can you read it off to me just so I know what we're talking about?
4-power creature demon. From Dis, play purge up to 2 cards from a discard pile. Your opponent loses amber equal to the number of amber bonus icons on the purge cards.
Yep, we call it the Infernus meta currently for a reason. This card is everywhere.
Is this card good? Should I play it?
This card,
It's super powerful.
No, you shouldn't.
No.
I mean, it does everything.
You shouldn't take the crutch. You should go find your own deck to play.
Oh. I mean, yeah. Infernus checks every box, right? It's Ember control, right? It is disruption. It's possible. I mean, really, it's up to you. It's possible creature control. Like, what box does he not check? Like, he's not a key cheat, so I guess that's about it.
Into your own deck, right? Like,
Yeah.
He's good.
It is.
So good.
It is a very, very good card. Timing wise, as I have talked about multiple times, proper infernusing targeting is very important, and a lot of people get into the trap where they burn crappy Amber Pip actions when they don't need the Amber control, and then they leave something like a Mimicry in the deck because they went for the Amber Pip, and then it comes back and bites them in the butt.
Well, it's just like Wild Wormhole, dude. You spit, like, when you're like, I can make him lose to Amber. You want to. It's just like Wild Wormhole. You want to spin the wheel.
But you have to think it. You have to think about the overall game.
No,
I think what's also missing is that it's a common card, so you can receive multiples. A way to be able to pull them back,
and it's a set with Exhume.
Well, but you have Exhume, you have Hysteria.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that's in World's Collide, isn't it?
And so but you can play Infernus, then be able to pop it back on the same turn. I think that Dan is correct in timing. For your deck and for your opponent's deck. There are times where, honestly, you're not seeing the Amber control just based on there's no cards in your opponent's discard or your discard.
There's not always Amber Pips.
Correct. And so knowing when to be able to cycle is extremely important.
The other thing is I've seen many decks that seem that most of their A is coming from Infernuses.
Mm-hmm.
And Infernus is in no way scaling Amber control, right? Like, basically, you get to 8 Amber and Infernus don't mean nothing. So, it is a very good card, but it alone doesn't win it. So, there's a lot of quad Infernus decks out there, actually, and they stink. They don't do it. Like, 4 Infernuses a deck does not.
Again, there's a lot of people who play Infernus very poorly, too. I've had games where the Infernus hits the board and they don't even attempt to kill it. Like, you want your Infernus more times than not. I know there's going to be like, remember that one situation where I didn't want to kill my Infernus? Yeah, no. You almost always want to kill your Infernus so you can cycle through.
Oh, yes. You're saying as it's your Infernus, yes. You just sack it.
Yes. So now you don't want to kill your opponent's Infernus because now you're playing. Yeah, because I want to cycle him and get more value out of him.
Funny how people will choose to kill Infernuses as a high value kill target. I don't. Maybe your deck has bounce. I mean, there's a lot of Infernus decks with like Chimera Eclipses and stuff. So then killing the Infernus becomes a thing, and then they just regrowth it and you swear at them anyways. Oh, pick the wrong card. You were gonna recur.
If you've never played against Dan, it's an experience. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that for Infernus, it really comes down to what component of the game are you in. Early on, I really heavily lean towards going ahead and eliminating chaff from my own deck to thin my deck and make it more efficient. If it's medium or mid or late game, I may need it for Amber control. I may need it to take out key pieces that I've seen. But if I
was going to say,
the game is over.
Like every other good Keyforge card, it depends, right? Yeah. I mean, if my opponent did, maybe they play it early on in the hopes of like getting it back later on when it's going to hurt me, and I know that I want that card gone, I'm going to make that card go bye-bye.
But this is Infernus, a quick use of Infernus is look at the F of their deck. If they have a high F deck and you really want to be targeting high value cards that you don't want them to replay, the big C cards, like they're bouncing Death Quirks,
TMTP, stuff of that nature. Yeah.
Yeah. And if their deck has no F, then you probably can afford to just purge Amber Pips because they're not planning to flip. Yeah. So then then unless it's a recursion, right? Because recursion isn't tap anymore, as we probably discussed in a previous one. But there are definitely tricks to playing Infernus. It is an interesting card because it's disruption, but it's only disruption to recursion. It's not disruption in the classic disruption thing. It doesn't prevent them from playing actions. It doesn't reduce the number of cards they're going to draw. But it definitely does disturb plans, right? It's Martian generosity, key abductions, least favorite thing to see.
Yep.
One Infernus and your freaking MG deck is dead, and you cry a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Cyberclone.
All right. So Cyberclone Logos, 1 power creature, mutant. Play, purge another creature until Cyberclone leaves play. It has power equal to the purge creature's power and gains that creature's armor, keywords, and traits.
Why did we decide that purge is disruption?
I'm kind of wondering that. I'm like, this sounds more creature control-y.
I'm just wondering, I mean, how do we decide that purge is disruption? What was our thought there? I can see it definitely just destroys recursion based things. Yeah. But if disruption's definition is hand play and draw, then I don't know how purge, unless it's purge random cards out of your hand.
Well, Inspector does do that.
It does get this one does get a disruption score in
Cyberclone
DOK.
does?
Mm-hmm. Yep, Cyberclone does, right? So Purge is given disruption. Now, it's not as much as some of these other ones we've been talking about, but it's 1/2 to 3/4 for Cyberclone.
I wonder why.
I'm kind of curious, too.
Yeah, I guess they're thinking, hey, like, if you're cycling back, right, or regrowthing.
Yeah, but then how much disruption did Infernus have?
Infernus had 1/4 to 1/2.
Oh, is that it? Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Bornit's Bornit had 1/2 to 1, and Bornit's Touch had just 1/2.
Yeah, I guess we're saying, hey, that's preventing you from playing that card at all. Is a little bit more.
Because I mean, at least Cyberclone to me seems more creature control-y.
Oh, for sure, that's what it is. It's
right. No, it's creature control.
Yeah.
I mean, those double Gravitron decks out there.
I guess and it's got to be coming in this list, but Creeping Oblivion.
I think we already went through Creeping Oblivion.
Well, it should be right. It should be in Purge. I think we just didn't type it in here, but
yeah, but what kind of D does that get? Because you're just I don't know. I don't see how Purge is D. Purge from discard is necessarily D.
Well, Cyberclone isn't Purge from discard.
No, but these other ones
are. Yeah, Creeping Oblivion does have 1/2 point of disruption on it too. And that's
okay, so there must be some definition in there about how Purge is disruption. Which okay.
Well, and we've watched DOK evolve over time. You know what I mean? So, I mean, then maybe this is one of the evolutions. I don't know if they necessarily updated the, their end game results on it. That's another thing too.
Well, I think the next one that was under for Purge is also interesting. Ostracize. So Ostracize is Saurian. Action, play, lose 1 amber if you do purge a creature. And that also has half a point.
It should be the same as Cyberclone, right? Because it's the same effect.
Mm-hmm. Right. What does Reclaim by Nature? What does Reclaim by Nature have? Does that have a 1/2 too?
Probably, yep. Check.
What does Annihilation Ritual have?
So Reclaim by Nature has a 1/2 point, and that's Untamed, Amber Pip, Action, Purge an artifact, resolve its bonus icons if you had played it. And what was the other one?
Annihilation Ritual has other.
It has other?
Which is interesting. Yeah, Annihilation Ritual artifact, you get an ember. When a creature would enter a discard pile from play, it is purged instead.
Does it have a disruption score though?
No. Maybe because it's the metric. No.
What set was Annihilation Ritual in?
Coda.
I was gonna say, was it Coda or AOA? For some reason, I wanted to say it was Coda. So maybe this is just an evolution. It might have been just Coda, but maybe this was an evolution. I mean, eventually, some point, somebody said, well, Purge is kind of disruption too. I mean, because
maybe when Infernus was so strong, they were like, we gotta jack up all these Purge cards. I don't know.
I don't know. Like, I mean, there's definite disruption in Infernus, right? Like Sheep said, like Infernus can ruin a whole deck.
Yep.
I mean, it can make your day. He can make your day a nightmare if you let him, especially if there's a lot of recursion, a lot of bounce, a lot of, there's so many ways to get Infernus back in your hand to play him again. Like he could ruin everything. Right?
So what's interesting is Purge seems to have this negative effect where a lot of people are like, it really frustrates them. The next category, play from opponent, really has a different aspect. It almost seems whimsical when someone's playing something off. And we had Lateral Shift, Merkins, and Fidget. So
what does Lateral Shift do again?
So yeah, Lateral Shift is action, play, look at your opponent's hand, play a card from that hand as if it were yours, and this was an anomaly in Worlds Collide, so it can be in basically the houses.
That's why I'm like losing it because I'm not even sure if it exists, to be honest with you, because I don't think it's ever been played against me. Merkins, I hate. I mean, you said it's whimsical. Is that what you said?
I think that you have less negative effect. Like when someone plays Lateral Shift on you, like you just don't see it that often. And I don't know.
I say Lateral Shift. I'm pretty sure it's like Sasquatch. Sasquatch has decks with Lateral Shift in it because I don't think I've ever seen one. But Merkins, I hate Merkins.
Really?
Merkins is such a pain in the ass, and he always pops up when you never expect. Well, it's always like when you never expect him. It's like the Spanish Inquisition, man. Like somebody just plays as a Merkins and was like, oh, and then like magically my best card in my deck just like floats to the top and they Merkins me. Okay, Fidget nobody cares about because Fidget dies.
Merkins is amazing.
Yeah. So Merkins is a shadow 2-power creature elf thief. Choose a random card in your opponent's archives or the top card of your opponent's deck. Play that card as if it were yours.
Let's be honest. AOA. Nobody's playing a card from my archives. They're definitely going for the top of the deck.
Oh, there's been quite a few times to play.
Really? Unless you're playing that. I guess you're playing that MG.
I mean, a lot of people put their best stuff in their archives.
That's true. Right? That is true. Hey,
your opponent just went to 8. Oh yeah, play your Merkins. Like maybe you'll get a graft, right? Maybe you'll get some sort of scaling Ember control. Maybe you'll get like.
But has anybody ever successfully?
Maybe you'll get a Tandalin.
You never know,
right? That's what Sheep puts in there when you're like, there you go, take this.
Sheep just likes to muddy the water in his. He likes dirty archives. But I mean, has anybody here ever successfully? I mean, even if you guys are in the chat, has anybody ever successfully pulled off a Fidget?
Yeah.
Yes.
Did it feel good? Or like I don't know. I don't think I've ever done one. So I mean,
it's not super often.
I have most certainly taken bad turns to reap with a Fidget just because I
can. So what you're saying is it was not optimal for you or I'm
playing your cards. It's always optimal.
Oh well. Listen, I don't have any Shadows cards in my hand, but I have a Fidget that can reap, so I'm definitely going for it.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
I mean, it's also why Lateral Shift is just so good, right? Because it's not random card. It's look at all the cards that your opponent was holding in their hand for the right moment and take the best one from them and just use it. Like, that's...
All right, so Lady Red said she pulled a Lateral Shift and sealed once. It was underwhelming.
Well, the sheet I played, I remember this, and
I'm still not convinced it exists.
It was, I mean, the deck. It was a Lateral Shift deck it was no other type of deck.
Like,
Had a
that's
lateral
all.
shift,
It was.
right?
It was a one-trick pony.
So it's a great card.
Yeah, but it was using somebody else's trick in sealed, which isn't guaranteed to be any good.
Right.
This is true. Better in Archon, right? If you're playing another.
Would you like my Tantandolin? Because I got 7 of them.
Only Dan plays a deck that over half a house is Tantandolin. So, I mean, speaking of Tantandolin, we're gonna jump here. Don't hurt me, Ewok. We're gonna jump here right into Attack's Archives. Sorry, we're gonna because he already brought it up, so we might as well just flow into it.
No,
right?
you're the horrible.
Why? What did I do? You want to go? Okay,
because
so
Ewok already had the next cards open on his screen.
all right, so let's go to
Desania. Here we go. We're going.
All right, it's only 2 of them. I mean, we're in the
Discard all their archives. Get an amber for each one. 4 power. Has some traits. Who cares?
Yeah, it is just
logos. It's a mutant.
That's Desania.
4 power creature. Yeah, Desania. And your opponent discards each of their archive cards. You gain 1 amber for each card discarded this way.
All right, question. I'm going to be that kid in class. Has anybody ever pulled this off?
Yeah.
All the time.
All the time?
I have a double Desania deck, and do you want to know how much it messes people up when they're running their archives? Yeah. Throw
again,
in there.
I play that Akari deck, which is double Exhumed Desania. I dare you to put something in your archive.
I'm gonna. I don't play a lot of archivey decks, so I mean, maybe I just never.
Well, I think this is again one sort of like lateral shift where it's way better in Archon than it is in Sealed, right? Because Sealed, like maybe you can archive 1 card, like in your whole deck, right? Whereas in Archon, right, you play in decks that are just feeding cards into their archives, right? They're trying to get every Brobnar card they have into their archives, right? And then make your keys cost $1 million with eddies, right? And suddenly, like, you blow that up, right? So
it's not even that you're just blowing it up. You're also gaining amber. So you have an amber spike. They're discarding all of their cards in there. And there are a lot of decks that depend on having their key cards archived away for when they want to use them later.
For sure. For sure. Right? And getting some ember and getting those out and into the discard.
Can we still all agree Tantandolin's just horrible? Or is Dan going to tell me like it's the greatest card ever? There goes the unmute. I knew it was coming. He's going to give me the business. Are you guys ready for this? And it's just going to be quiet. Come on!
No defense.
No defense. No, and he just left. All right. Well, I guess it's on the top of deck. Oh, wait. No, he's coming back. Maybe something's going on. Maybe connection issues?
My mic keeps turning off on this stupid phone.
All right.
And I can't get it to turn back on.
Are you going to tell me that Tantandolin's like the best card ever invented, and here's all the reasons why?
Tantandolin is the best card because other people get it in their AOA decks and have to play it. No, it is awful.
So really the only good thing about it is it clogs up somebody else's untamed house.
Yep.
Okay.
Like 3 glimmers and 4 Tantandolins. Oh, so good.
Dad just likes to relish in other people's pain. It's fantastic. All right, can we go to top? We can go to top of deck now, right? You got those ready, Ewok?
Do you want to go with Tantandolin?
Oh yeah, go ahead. Tell him what it does.
All right,
You'll
9 power untamed creature. 8, maybe not. Probably not. Tree creature. That's right. Tantandolin only deals 2 when fighting, but it's got a sweet fight effect. Fight. Discard a random card. From
they couldn't just call him a tree folk, or is that Wizards of the Coast copyrighted?
Yeah.
Like the fish people are called Aquans instead of just merfolk. Like I kind of just figured that's what they'd be.
No, he's just a tree.
He's just a tree. Tree. You said he was a tree person, right?
Tree.
Oh, is it just tree?
It says tree.
Oh well.
It could have been a shrubbery.
Shrubbery.
Could have been. You're right.
Some sort of ficus, I think. All right. Top of deck.
This is an area that we are talking about newer pieces. DT brought about top of deck. So we're seeing, first of all, Brain Drain. Brain Drain Unfathomable with a printed amber. Action. Play. Look at your opponent's hand. Choose a card from it and put it on top of their deck. Common card too.
That's,
Very nice.
So this is
I think it's Mike went again. It's good. It's good, right? So it's kind of sort of like, so it's got that aspect, a little bit of the lateral shift where you're looking at the hand, right? Now you're not playing it, but you are taking potentially the best card out of their hand, putting it back on top of their deck so they can't use it next turn. You are taking it, maybe taking something that is, hey, they've got,
something that's going to hurt you and messes with your plans next turn,
something
or you
that
need
you
it to
know,
live.
Yeah, they're going to play out of that house next turn, and just make it harder for them to know, right? They got 3-2-1 or something. Now suddenly they got 2-2-1, right? Like it's very good. It's very good. Plus, you just get the information, like even just the other information of what's in their hand.
Mm-hmm.
That's really useful also. I see they don't have their TMTP. Guess what I'm going to do, right? I see they do have it. I'm going to put it back on top of their deck. Or, hey, you know what? I'm just going to get rid of their board clear and go to 6, right? Like, a lot of information.
I like how you're like, they have another TMTP. So I can go to town because, Unfathomable, known for its awesome burst potential.
Well, maybe you got the not Tentacus, the sheep's
Omnipus.
favorite. Omnipus.
Oh,
there you go.
Omnipus.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for Omnipus decks to become viable.
I mean, they are, I think,
fun.
for weird formats, they could be very good. The 60 SAS cap, grab a Tentaclid deck. Or Omnipus.
Omnipuses are great.
I think they're Omnipie.
You just don't know how to make a good Omnipie.
You know what? I played that Omnipus deck. I wasn't impressed.
You let that Omnipus deck play you.
That's true. I sure did. Did we go through
Sheep, what were you saying when
Bubbles, yeah.
you get cut out?
For
Brain Drain.
Brain Drain is that classic is everything disruption. It can be A, it can be C, it can be whatever it needs to be, assuming they have that card in their hand. Right? It's that kind of really high-end disruption.
Yeah. I appreciate that it was put at a common level so we can see multiples. I can also tell you that if you get them stuck in your hand at the same time, it's not really adding a ton extra. And there's just times where you're not getting a ton of value, but most of the time it's very, very good. All right, the next card that we had was Bubbles. So Bubbles, Unfathomable creature, Aquan, 5 power, play, put an enemy creature on top of its owner's deck. Also common.
Okay, well, Dexter is bad.
Yep.
And this is like Dexter's effect on any creature.
Yep.
But it also counts as bounce, and bounce is so good.
Especially our dinos.
Our amber pinatas.
I think there's more critters now that you don't want to bounce out there. I mean, are you really bouncing a Kirby? I mean, no doubt. I'm not saying Bubbles is bad, because Bubbles is good, but like, I think
if you
painting
can't
that
kill
like
the Kirby, yeah, you want to bounce it.
But you still get the play effect off him when he's replayed.
It doesn't.
Yeah, but if you don't kill him, he gets to reap, and now he gets to take an amber and do it.
Yeah, that's true. All these things,
and then he has to drop back into his hand and play it again, which hopefully by that time you can kill the other Star Alliance creatures and make it a less awesome play. Like, I mean, there are certainly cards that you will not want to do. Omnipus, maybe. Or, and depending on what kind of Triska shenanigans they got in their deck, there are times when you're not going to want to Bubbles, but typically Bubbles pretty good.
All right. Maelstrom.
Maelstrom. All right.
I always
Maelstrom.
say Maelstrom, but
yeah, it's not.
I know. Thank you.
Unfathomable action, Maelstrom. Play, put each creature on top of its owner's deck in a random order. Gain 2 chains.
Okay, so Maelstrom versus 20 creature decks can just be a game win.
Mm-hmm.
You let them build their board, and then you go, and I'll shuffle those 13 creatures back on top in a random order, and now you have to go through playing your junk again.
But it is not an auto play. I think a lot of people still see it and are like, oh, I got to play this. You need to picture, if I have 6 creatures of one house, you're just putting them back. Okay, maybe that gets me away from the amber control. Yes, but I'm saying at that point, you're cycling back into it versus if I have 3 different houses of creatures out, it is a lot more powerful. I think Maelstrom has power in that I have the first chance to take my unfathomable creatures and frankly go ahead and kill them off and then return yours, because this is a symmetrical effect. So not only are you taking the chains...
When are you not playing this card, though? Like, when are you going, I think I'll discard it?
Well, when you have a bigger board than that.
If you have a bigger board, most definitely.
But that's any board clear. Like, you're not going to be like, I'm gateway to this. You have 1, I have 7.
When it's just like 2 to 3 or 1 to 2 creatures, it's not worth the 2 chains. But I think when they have 6 of one creature, it's still a fantastic play because they're unlikely to play 6 cards from their hand and draw those 6 creatures. So they're going to play 3 cards from their hand, then they draw their 3 creatures back, and now they only get to play some of them, and then they have to draw them again the next turn. It's just turns of choke. Like, one of my favorite combos in this game is Hysteria Life Ward, because it's hand choke. Mm-hmm. Right? You just fill their hands so full of stuff that doesn't do them anything. It takes them a long time to get out from under it. And that's the same thing that Maelstrom does often. It just fills them where they're just drawing stuff that isn't answers.
And Wookie, to answer your question, I don't think that at play Maelstrom, when I'm looking at, you're sitting with 1 house that's on the board, and I have 2 or 3. There's even with the 2 or like, here's 2 cards of each house. It's not efficient for me. So no.
But I don't see it as like I'm not auto playing board clears. You know what I mean? I don't see a world like maybe. I mean, I guess I'm having a tough time describing it, right? Because like there's a good chance like if I have a board clear in my hand, I'm probably not going to go to that house if I don't need to use the board clear, or if I can get around using the board clear. But yeah, I mean, I see where you're coming from on a lot of that, but like when you were saying like, yeah, if they got 6 creatures and it's all the same house, I 100% agree with Dan. Like, you 100% of the time play this. Because now I'm just feeling like I have 7 Tantantalids out. Good. Now they're all on the top of your deck. Have fun playing 7 more Tantantalids over the next 3 turns.
I mean, there is a potential that they're all play effect creatures, and you don't want to do it.
Sure.
But, I mean, there's all kinds of edge cases on every card we can look at.
Right. Sure. I do think this one is a little trickier, a little more conditional than something just like a Gateway to Dis, right? Like, with your typical normal board clear, hey, you reap with your 2 disc creatures you have out, you get the value, then you clear the board, you're like, hey, they were probably going to kill my guys soon anyway, right? Mm-hmm. So I got what I needed to get, and now I'm just doing what I'm going to do going forward, and I'm playing first, so I got the advantage there. And whereas with Maelstrom, it's much more like, well, yeah, they're going to have those guys come back, but I'm going to have these guys come back, and so maybe I want to fight and kill off my own guys, which means I'm not reaping before the clear. So I think it's harder. I think there's great Maelstrom great Maelstrom decks, if you will. But I also think there's a lot of Maelstrom decks where you're like, you know what, I'm not likely to want to play this Maelstrom, more so than with like a Gateway to Dis.
Right on. All right, to our miscellaneous. This is the last one, and it's labeled as miscellaneous.
Yeah, that's Mind Over Matter. So Mind Over Matter is a Logos action play. Put each creature into its owner's archives. And it actually comes with a 1/4 to 1.5 for disruption.
I guess it really is miscellaneous.
Mm-hmm.
I've been trying to place it. Because it kind of, again, it sits in like that Maelstrom territory, but it's not top of deck. Like, it's one of a kind. Is there any other card that says I mean, there's a couple of them that, like, put creatures into your archives, right? Collector
there is
Worm.
Like Banish or whatever.
Yeah.
Put it in your opponent's archive. But yeah, this is kind of a board clear, but you're also putting your archive, so you're allowing your opponent and yourself to pull that archive at the right moment. So but at the same time, you're destroying the creatures, so you also get,
you could dirty somebody's
Ludos
archive,
and stuff.
though. Let me go dirty your archive.
But yeah, it can be very dirty archive, right? So it is a interesting card that is sometimes very disruptive, but sometimes very much not.
Yeah, this is more in kind of what Ewok was talking about. Like, if they have 6 of one house, you may not want to do this.
No.
Right? If you can give them a dirty archives, it's great, because then they when they want to take it back, that just clogs their hand. And hand clogging is a disruption thing that we're not really talking about, because did Hysteria make it anywhere in disruption?
It does not get it does not get a disruption rank, does it?
But like, if
Hysteria?
they got 3 houses,
did it get a disruption rank?
Oh yeah, Hysteria we talked right away. So that was return to hand.
Right.
Return to hand was Snudge, Hysteria, Whispering Reliquary, Lights Out, Nature's Call, Grasping Vines. Yeah, Tempting Offer.
So this card is a lot like the same kind of thing that Hysteria is.
It was similar. It's just interesting because it's not going to hand; it's going into the archive, and so
it's slow.
It makes that Archivist play to the board of mine good. I dare you to play it. I dare you.
What's so funny is Dan is like all against, like, he doesn't want to build decks, but he loves theory crafting. You know, like things that won't be happening.
Yes. I know there's a few cards in this game that I like that suck, like the Archivist.
Mm-hmm.
He sucks, but I want him to be good.
You know,
well, he's fantastic if he fires and you have a deck that works with him, but he's just very small, such a rare incursion.
Jupiter had a pretty sweet Archivist Control the Weak deck.
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't. Okay.
Mark of Disc, maybe.
Control the Weak. No, I'm not thinking Archivist. Yeah, no, Archaeologist. Sorry, never mind. Not Archivist.
Yes.
Novu Archaeologist. My bad. They've made cards they're totally different cards. Yeah. Not even close.
We're putting you to bed, Wookie.
Please do. Give me my medicine. Put me to sleep, because I am confusing all the things right now. So
yeah, it's getting late.
It's been that kind of week. It's time for us old fogies to go to bed. So, should we wrap up? Should we wrap up final thoughts? We'll let Sheep go first.
D is everything and nothing.
Ooh, I like that one.
Very profound.
I like it. Ewok.
D is definitely there. It's a stat that often gets overlooked, but have some fun with it. Play Keyforge. Come on out and join us. There's a lot of new people entering our forums, and so it's nice to see new faces. Nice to play against some people on ABR too. So a lot of Keyforge happening. Get out there, play some games, have fun.
Drascore.
Well, I'll tell you, in this discussion about D, I've probably opened more tabs and started more random DOK searches than
ever before.
Than most of our other episodes. So, like I said, this is, I got to scroll or swipe to the side to see this stat on DOK on my phone, which is where I'm looking at it a lot. So sometimes I forget to think about it. So now I've got a whole bunch of searches to mess with. So that'll be fun.
There's definitely a lot of aspects of the disruption that I wish were more like pursued, fleshed out, looked at as possible game mechanics. Oh boy.
Well, that's all right. This game has lots of future left.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying is I would like them to look into that a little bit further.
Because WOOKIE likes to screw his opponent.
Sorry. Like, I don't know. Why is it so bad?
Whatever, you and your blue mill decks.
I may be bad,
blue mill,
but I feel good. Quote,
I just want to frustrate you till you quit the game. That's all. I mean, it's not a big deal.
Welcome to Keyforge. We want to play games.
You don't have fun.
That's right. I don't want you to have. I'm not bringing these to Chainbound, but I just don't want you to have fun. I mean, it's not a bad. I don't know. Whatever.
So you can get a hold of us on Discord, and by us I mean Wookie. Tell him how much it's a pain to play against, and you don't want to hear from him or see him ever again. Again, that Discord is Wookie.
He doesn't look at his own deck list. You don't have to worry about it.
No, he doesn't.
I don't know.
He talks a big game.
It's true. I haven't looked at a deck list in like 6 months. I don't know what I'm playing half the time. Somehow I still go 2-2, which is the sad fact. I guess it's true what they see. Even a blind chicken finds a kernel of corn every now and again. But that's going to do it for us this week. We'll come back. See you guys all next week.
Fortune.
I was going to say, hit it, Transcore.
Happy fortune.
All right.
Happy fortune.